Hey, what's going on, Purple People Podcast fans? Welcome to the show this week. My name is Kyle Smith. I am joined, as always, by Adam Carlson.
Howdy.
And Mr. Kyle West. What's up, man?
Hey, I am back. I am over my cold. Last week, I could have been the lead singer for a Motorhead cover band because I had no voice. But I am here to annoy you all this week.
Will you break out into Ace of Spades randomly at some point in the show?
No. Well, maybe.
It would be hard to be annoying, though, after a great win like that.
Yeah, after a Vikings victory, I think we're all really super excited. We were just talking before we recorded about how exciting this season is and how we as fans should really enjoy this. We really should be.
Yeah, I won't say it's feeling magical yet, but it's feeling kind of special.
Yeah, definitely. All things considered, this has been a great year so far. And I would say mostly above expectation at this point, which is really good. But before we jump in and get everything started this week, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm glad you're joining us. This is episode number 279, titled Kings of the North, which is what we are right now.
Game of Thrones reference for everyone out there.
All my ideas got shut down, but hey, I guess.
They were not family appropriate.
Every once in a while, you got to work blue.
There was a lot of butthole jokes going on, Adam.
Hey, sometimes you got to make jokes.
I forget what movie that is.
Valid point, though. The roof of the Falcons stadium looks like a giant butthole.
I say it looks like apple pie. It's my only way around it.
Yeah.
We got people in the chat already. We got Eric here. We got Sean, Kathy. Other folks are filing in because they see that we're live. And if you guys want to know when we go live, hit that little bell icon down there and subscribe. You'll get notifications when we come on, and you can come chat with us. We can talk Vikings football. It'll be fun times.
Yeah.
I'll do it backwards from what we usually do. So like we said, thanks for joining us. I challenge all of you in the chat and anybody that listens to the show this week, give our page a like on YouTube and tell somebody about it. We can get these numbers up. You can invite more of your friends in to talk with us. It's a lot of fun. And it kind of sparks side conversations during the chat, we've noticed. So it's really cool to live interact with people. But
yeah, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, your family, your enemies, everybody. Just invite them all.
Yeah, we won't be mad about that.
We never have any idea, you can answer a question in the chat, how long the shows will be. We always say, oh, this will be a quick show. We'll be done in like 25 minutes. Hour and a half later, we'll be talking about Adrian Peterson and Game of Thrones and Walking Dead and Brock Lesnar. So we don't know where this is going. That's the fun of it.
It's true. It really is.
So I know what Adam Carlson likes. He likes quick
offensive linemen?
Well, yeah, we can talk about those.
Naked women?
Keep going. Yeah, you're good.
Walking Dead?
Steak? I do like steak.
A good horror film.
Oh, yeah, that's good stuff, too.
But he likes quick hits, too, when we do this show.
Oh, yeah, I love those, too.
We're going to do some quick hits now. In case you guys didn't hear about it, Case Keenum was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Month for November. He's been pretty spectacular for us. All things considered.
He threw the football pretty well last month.
The numbers don't really jump off the screen when you're talking about the MVP race, although there have been light rumblings with his name being thrown in there, which is really funny to me. But I think the thing that's most impressive, and we can all agree, at least in here between the three of us, is the rating. Case doesn't make too many stupid throws and too many mistakes. He takes care of the ball very well while still being able to get it down the field, and he makes all the throws. It's really weird. Wasn't really expecting that from him when we started, but he's been playing the best football of his career.
I have to own up to it. When Sam Bradford went down after week 1 and Case was coming in, I thought that this was like season over for the Vikings. I was not expecting us to go 10-2, and I am happy to be wrong that this happened. Very, very happy that this that turned out to be the case for Case Keenum.
All I remember is on Twitter how many people were talking about how signing Case Keenum was a horrible idea. They should have brought in another project quarterback, to be underneath Sam and Teddy. And, boy, Case is really doing a fantastic job at shutting up all his doubters, that's for sure.
Yeah, and as for him being the NFC Offensive Player of the Month, guys, Tom Brady was the AFC Offensive Player of the Month. That's some pretty darn good company that he just got put in, because holy crap.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning before when we talk about numbers. His numbers aren't going to jump off the screen like a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady because the team is so well balanced now. We have a threat everywhere on all sides of the ball. I think our biggest weakness is honestly special teams, but as far as offense and defense goes, we're pretty balanced everywhere. So he doesn't have those huge, at least for this season, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, or Tom Brady numbers. But that rating, man, that rating that he has is absolutely – it's stellar. It's really, really
I don't care what numbers. The only numbers that matter on this team are the fact that we're 10-2 with 8 wins in a row right now.
See, I kind of disagree there because you need some great numbers on offense to match up with that strong defense. Because there was a time when the Vikings defense was good, but the Vikings just couldn't move the ball offensively.
Oh,
and
sure.
Now you've got Case Keenum coming in, and he is completing an insane number of passes, which Vikings fans, I hope you're not getting too used to. You know, like last year, Sam Bradford set an NFL record for completion percentage. And this year, Case Keenum comes out, and he is not missing many throws. I think he only missed 5 last week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And not at all in the second half. I think he completed every one of them.
Perfect in the second half. He made his last 15 throws yesterday. But we're going to talk about that game soon because they played Atlanta yesterday, and we'll fill you in on how that went. This next one's really, really cool to talk about, and I can kind of circle this around full circle. So the Philadelphia Eagles played the Seattle Seahawks last night. Former Minnesota Viking and everyone's fan favorite, Mr. Blair Walsh, now in Seattle. But they did us a favor last night, the Seattle Seahawks. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles, who were number 1 in our conference in the NFC. With that loss from the Seahawks, the Philadelphia Eagles went down to number 2, which means we slid into the number 1 position in the conference. This is stellar news because if this can maintain, and that's a big if because we still have another quarter of the football season to go, but if we can maintain that number 1, that means home field advantage throughout, and I really, really like our chances at home.
What was interesting, too, is that the loss by the Eagles, it wasn't really a close loss.
Nope.
It was a very decisive win by Seattle, and Minnesota hasn't played either Philly or Seattle this year, so it's hard to kind of gauge how Minnesota would stack up against either of those teams without seeing them going head-to-head. But
You mean you're not counting preseason, Adam?
No. But still, I mean, these teams, both Seattle and Philly, are still dangerous teams. But seeing what happened to Philly against a strong defense that still was missing some players and an offense that can cause problems with a mobile quarterback that can hit his throws on the run, I like what I'm seeing, and I'm kind of really liking how Minnesota would match up against Philly.
Yeah, they've been a juggernaut. Carson Wentz has definitely been playing really, really well compared to last year. He's been in the MVP race for a while this year now with his numbers. But there was something that came out today. I can't remember. I think it was one of the NFL memes pages, but it showed all the wins that the Eagles had. And I think they've only beaten 2 teams with a winning record.
That's true.
The Vikings have definitely beaten a couple of teams more than that have a winning record. And some tough ones on the road. Yesterday was a tough one. You guys remember last year, Atlanta was in the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, and they didn't score a touchdown yesterday. It's crazy to think about. But thank you, Seattle, for hooking us up. We will take that number 1 seed all day long, and I know that'll motivate this team to keep winning like they have been, so we can keep that. Because when you play the Super Bowl in your stadium and you're at 10-2 right now with 4 games left, you should be pretty excited for your chances to stay up top. So.
And what we're talking about, that the NFC North kind of cleared up itself a little bit too. The Vikings solidified themselves up top at 10 wins. The Bears have the basement on lockdown with 3 wins. And then in the middle, you've got, the Lions and the Packers at 6-6 each, and they're both just kind of like just grabbing on to whatever they can to some kind of playoff hopes. And neither team, well, let's talk about Detroit for a second because they looked god-awful.
Yeah, against the Ravens team that we absolutely manhandled. They did have to go to Baltimore, which is different when you're on the road, but Detroit looked pretty helpless yesterday, which is kind of weird because Detroit always usually finds a way to win, even when they're down. But they looked pretty helpless yesterday.
And Lions players are already going on the record as saying that there's a completely different feel in the locker room. Like the last couple of years, they've been able to put together runs at the end of the season. They said they don't feel that this year. Mm-hmm. And that itself is scary too, meaning, you know, when you got a shift in an organization's feel, that's not a good sign. Because the Vikings are trending upward. You get that feeling like these guys are hungry. They're not complacent sitting on top. They want that home field advantage all throughout whatever they're going to do in the postseason. They are going to remain hungry. And it's weird to see these teams that just don't seem as hungry.
Yeah, it was really weird to see Baltimore, who we 3 weeks ago, you know, would say arguably one of the worst teams in the league. Just boring to watch, just all over the place.
Bad offense, bad.
Really, really bad. And, I mean, it's a Super Bowl winning quarterback who had no interceptions through the playoffs a couple years ago. And then yesterday they put a 40-burger up on Detroit.
It's amazing.
So, as this would tell you, every week the NFL is weird. But I love this next quick hit. This is one of my favorites here. If you guys didn't already know, the Pro Bowl voting is out. You can cast your vote at NFL.com. 3 Vikings currently sit at the top of the Pro Bowl voting. Everson Griffin, Harrison Smith, and Mr. Mankato himself, Adam Thielen, at the top of Pro Bowl voting. I still think there's a couple other people that should be in there, Xavier Rhodes. But this is pretty exciting to see, especially with Adam Thielen. Everson and Harrison have all been there before, but Adam getting his first nod to go to the Pro Bowl is pretty exciting.
Yeah, in the NFC, the wide receiver situation, a lot of the top wide receivers have gone down, and you got Adam Thielen there, who I believe is he still third in the NFL in receiving?
Let me check that for you. I'll get back to you.
Because I believe Julio's still above him, even after not getting very many catches and yards during this contest. But he's still among the league's top receivers.
He's number 4.
He's number 4 now?
Yeah, he is currently – he's less than 10 yards behind Julio Jones, so that could change.
Who leapfrogged those two?
We have DeAndre Hopkins from Houston. He's now in second place.
Yeah, another AFC boy. But yeah, we got Sean Reynolds in the chat saying that Pat Elflein should be a Pro Bowler. Xavier's pretty nifty too. Let's be honest here. One of the guys that I gave a lot of poop to when he signed to Minnesota because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with him. Riley Rafe, I didn't know whether they were going to put him at either tackle or what the situation was. But he's come out and he's really put forth a fantastic performance. He's stayed healthy. He's kept the quarterback clean. I'm really impressed with what he's got going on, and he should be a Pro Bowler this year. He should be.
Yeah, they've done a good job with the line rebuild. I was actually seeing some fans of the Denver Broncos, they're having issues with their line this year. We're pointing to the Minnesota Vikings and the turnaround that we had from last season to this season on the offensive line as proof that, hey, you can turn around an O-line really quick if you're smart and you grab the right pieces.
And you got the money to throw around.
Yeah, that helps a little bit too.
You know what's crazy too? I never noticed this. Adam, you can tell me this. And guys in the chat, feel free to call me stupid if you think this is dumb or it doesn't make sense. But it seems this way at every position. The youth would be great and the depth would be great for you too. But we got younger and more mobile, and that really helped us out. Am I wrong for saying that when you can go a little bit younger, that's a bad thing? Because from last year, you remember last year when we signed Alex Boone, and then I know there was an article that came out that said, man, if this is 2012, the Vikings would have the best offensive line in the league. And I'm like, well, that's messed up, man. These guys are pretty good. And then turns out they weren't that good.
Well, the thing about getting youth is you get that explosiveness, the fresh legs. Not only that, but you can get the cheap contracts because you got these guys that haven't proved themselves. And you can hold them down, especially on a rookie deal, for 3-4 years and not pay them a lot, be able to build another spots. And offensive line is a weird spot because you've got a lot of players that are under 30. Joe Berger is really the only exception. And as soon as he steps out, they've already drafted a guy that I think is going to be his replacement. And interior offensive linemen they're not as tough to get as those bookends, those offensive tackles, or a really good center. It's all about meshing together as a unit. And I'm really excited about this offensive line going forward. Even without Joe Berger, who I got to admit, I am still a homer for.
Yeah, you can't not like Joe Berger. Let's be real.
Yeah, and what helps this team out, too, is that they're young, but they have veterans in the right places on this team. And they're veterans that are Like, you got guys like Terrence Newman, and then you also have, like, Xavier Rhodes is a veteran, but he's still a young player. So it's a good mix of talent on this team.
And you got great grabs like Rashad Hill. Who'd have thought he was kind of panning out?
Absolutely. The depth on this team is pretty good. For all the guys that want to talk crap about guys like Treadwell, or some people still don't like Trey Waynes, or the first-round picks that didn't work out. I mean, we do a pretty damn good job of having good depth on this team. So it's kind of cool that we get to talk about all that, because why not? And we got to give the offensive line some love. I'm not going to lie to you. Pat Elflein was up there to be my freaking game ball this week, just because I wanted to give it to somebody that wasn't the obvious or hasn't gotten it the last 3 weeks in a row. But I'm pretty excited for you. Like you said, this offensive line, definitely the big change of the year.
And don't get me wrong, a lot of the offensive line still has its problems, but having a quarterback as mobile as Case Keenum, who can move and make throws on the run, it can hide a lot of those problems. And the offensive line is doing enough to buy him that time. So that they may not be putting forth a dominant performance on the offensive line, but it's good enough.
Yeah, it's doing the job, and that's all you got to ask. I'm really happy with the way they went, because that was a big question mark coming into this year. We had all these pieces, and we had a brand new offensive line, but we didn't know how it was going to work. But it's turned out pretty great so far.
So very true.
So let's turn back the clocks a little bit and talk about a former great for us. Now that kind of weird this happens. I'm sure Green Bay felt this way about Favre. After time, you kind of stop. At least my dislike has went down some for Adrian Peterson for certain things, but he's a Hall of Famer. We wanted to throw him in there because he's going to hit a milestone probably this week if he plays, but he's already set a milestone, becoming 12th on the list of all-time rushing yardage, passing Marcus Allen and Edgerrin James. He is 3 yards behind Marshall Faulk and 36 behind Jim Brown.
These numbers would be even better if he wasn't sitting out this week.
Yeah, he had a neck injury. He sat out. I only know this because of my fantasy team. I picked him up after he went to the Cardinals because it seemed like a pretty good pick. But I'm pretty sure by the end of the year, Adrian Peterson will get over 37 yards. He's got 4 games to do it. He's going to be in top 10 all-time rushing yardage, which is insane.
Absolutely.
I think he's only, 32? So he's still got stuff left in the tank if he can find the right fit. But congratulations to AP. That's a pretty big milestone. He's already 12th, and you're about to pass Marshall Faulk and Jim Brown. That's pretty crazy.
Imagine if a couple of those seasons that he lost due to issues, he would have had been productive. How high on the list he would already be?
I think he'd already be top 10, probably creeping closer to 5 now. But
he'd probably be top 5 if he wouldn't have lost.
If not for health and legal problems, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, those little things.
Yeah. If not for beating his kids.
Oh, I didn't even go there. Come on.
Yeah, we didn't.
Keep it classy.
We all know it.
I didn't do that one. So I'm excited to talk about this one because we had our fair share of picks yesterday. Even though the scoreboard doesn't really reflect it that much, Pro Football Focus, here are the top 5 Minnesota Vikings for Week 13 against the Falcons. Harrison Smith at 88.4, Anderson Dejo 83.1, Everson Griffin 81.2, Case Keenum 80.4, Latavius Murray 78.9. So a nice little mix there. 3 defensive players, 2 safeties at the top too, pretty sweet. And then in and out with 2 offensive players who really shined yesterday. But man, you notice how when we put these numbers together, because I'm pretty sure Adam throws those in there, at least the Pro Football Focus stuff. You know how there's a couple of recurring names, but every week it seems to jump back and forth. I remember seeing Jerick McKinnon on there one week. I know I've seen an offensive lineman in there at least once or twice. I'm like, man, this is pretty sweet. Adam Thielen, I think, has made an appearance before. But Harrison Smith always seems to be in there, like every single week.
Yeah, there are the regulars that always seem to show up in there. But there's always this couple that kind of shock you and show up, and they deserve the recognition for what they've done during the game, but they may not have really looked like it on the field, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Everson Griffin had an amazing game. He got a lot of pressures, but you didn't hear his name called a lot because he didn't come away with a sack during the game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, and the same thing with Harrison Smith. Not a single ball thrown his way. He got some tackles. He played close to the line of scrimmage sometimes. But, again, not flashy on the stat sheet, but a fantastic game.
I always like when they blitz Harrison Smith, and they did that a couple times. And it's just fun to see him get up and involved around the line. And you're right, Harrison Smith is just quietly such a good player that we don't talk about him enough, I feel like sometimes. But mad respect for Harrison Smith.
Yeah, arguably the best safety in the league. He's had like maybe 1 week where he wasn't number one, but he was still he's still in there. He's still in the top 5 or whatever. But I forget. Can you guys remember who called the game yesterday? Charles, what's his name? I can't remember his last name.
Charles Woodson? Davis?
Davis,
thank you.
That's it. Sorry, I can't remember his last name to save my life. But he always called. He's called a couple of our games this year, and he said Mike Zimmer would call Harrison Smith like the fixer, like, hey, get in there and fix this real quick. And that's such a high compliment.
Yeah.
Hey, I need you to get in here and pretty much make this play for us. And Harrison Smith will go do it. Like Kyle said, if you needed a blitz or if you needed to have him come down and assist one of the cornerbacks, it's just pretty sweet. But I love that stat because now we can transition into talking about this game. The Vikings played the Falcons in Atlanta yesterday. We won 14-9. The Vikings have now won 8 games in a row, first time since 1998, which is that's even better than
amazing.
2009 with Brett Favre with us, which was pretty sweet. But speaking of Harrison Smith, Matt Ryan didn't throw the ball towards him at all, according to Pro Football Focus.
Nope.
So he knows better than that. And God, this is so much fun. I can't wait to talk about this game because this is probably, even though the scoreboard wasn't crazy, this is probably my favorite game of the season so far. Because it's a testament. You had to play the conference representative in the Super Bowl. You went in their house and they didn't score a touchdown. So we can get into some game balls and donkeys now. But, yeah, the Vikings and Falcons played yesterday, and we came out on top. Pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I gave my game ball to Harrison Smith for that reason alone. I wanted to give it to Case Keenum, who had a great game. I really liked Mackenzie Alexander yesterday. He didn't jump off the stat board, but he made some pretty cool plays. But I didn't want to deny Harrison Smith in this one because the respect was absolutely there yesterday.
For sure. I went with the defense as well. I went with Eric Kendricks. He had a pass defense, 10 total tackles, 8 of them solo, twice as many as any other Vikings defender. Kendricks was everywhere. His speed as a linebacker is hugely underrated. The fact that he can close in on these ball carriers or track a ball in the air as well as he can, it's just a testament to how many teams overlooked him and how hard he's working to make it work from the middle. I love watching him play. Just his instincts keep getting better every week, too. I expect him now to have like 7 or more tackles every game.
It's insane.
It is. It's nuts.
As they say, sideline to sideline, he's definitely one of those linebackers that can just go all over the field. And like you said, his speed, it's phenomenal. I'm so glad that he didn't go to Green Bay.
They could have taken him.
They could have, but I'm glad that he came to us because he compliments Barr very, very well. They complement each other very, very well. So that's an awesome pick, man.
I went with Xavier Rhodes, who, and as much talent as there is on this defense, boy, I still think Xavier Rhodes is the most talented player out there on defense for the Vikings right now. He holds Julio Jones to 24 yards receiving total. You talk about a guy who can go out there and, like, whoever the team's best offensive weapon is, he will shut him down. And that is exactly what he did. The week before, Julio has monster yardage.
Yeah, was it 250-something the week before?
252. I was talking about that last week because we were scared of it. I was like, this is crazy. I don't think anybody else has had more than one. He's had 3 250-yard-plus games in his career, and then he comes in this game with 24 yards.
Yeah, 24 yards. I mean, and I know that is, you got to give credit to the entire defense for doing that because there's more than one person. It's not just Xavier Rhodes. But for the most part, that's him shadowing him throughout the duration of the game and holding him. Another outstanding performance from Xavier.
Can I jump on that real quick?
Go for it.
Funny, the announcers, Charles Davis is one of them, now that I remembered his last name. They were talking about it, and they said, they sit down with the coaches, the players, they talk to some of the star players, and he said, so I got to ask you, you're going to be following Julio the whole game? And he's like, did you really have to ask me that? And he's like, yeah, I have to ask you. And he's like, how can I put this? If they put Julio Jones in at halfback, I'll be the linebacker on that play.
Yeah, you bet.
I thought that was so funny, and I was like, you know what? And you know what? Xavier, like, he's never lacked the confidence. Just the technique had to get tweaked there in the early years. But man, this guy can just play with the best of them. I'm telling you.
All these players that come out of the draft are so talented for the most part, and it just takes the right coach to get the right player.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really Xavier Rhodes and Mike Zimmer are just the right player, the right fit, the right scheme, the right everything. And he just has got the most out of this kid, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
In the chat, we're getting a lot of love for Xavier Rhodes. Michael Cambria says you can give the game ball to Rhodes. Eric Grandal says Zay shut Julio down. Fire Breather says the game ball goes to Xavier Rhodes for shutting down Julio. 3 career games against Julio, only gave up 5 catches, 58 yards, no touchdowns. And I know that we're talking about Julio Jones like he's some sort of abstract figure, but this guy is a dominant wide receiver. He can make normal to good cornerbacks look awful.
Julio's a top 5 receiver in the league.
I honestly, I'll tell you this right now, and it's not just because we're hyping him up on the show. Everybody loves Antonio Brown, and you're not wrong from saying he's the best. But in my opinion, if I had to build a team around a wide receiver, I'm going Julio Jones.
I take Julio, yeah.
And let's talk too. Julio didn't get a ton of targets in this game.
Nope.
Matt Ryan only looked his way. Let's take a look here. Yeah, he only threw the football Julio Jones' way 6 times during the game, which means he was forced to dump it off to, in the flat to the running backs, which he did 8 times. And that's why the linebackers were able to just jump on that. Otherwise, it's the other cornerbacks. And I think Anderson Dejo was only targeted once as well. And I believe he batted that right out of Julio Jones' hands.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. There was a lot of pushing and shoving like we were talking about in the chat, I believe. And Anderson Dejo comes up and makes a play. This is why I was talking about Mackenzie Alexander earlier. The stats don't jump off, but he read one of those plays so beautifully and jumped the receiver and just smacked the ball down. And that's got to be so defeating for a quarterback like Matt Ryan, the reigning MVP. And that's not even our number 1 or number 2 corner, even our number 3 corner. And he snipped the play out and it's like, no, not today, man.
But yeah, like we were saying, it's Terrence Newman, it's Trey Waynes. It's those supporting guys that, sure, if you're able to take Julio away, you're going to get nickeled and dimed by these other guys. And the linebackers took the screen and the flat game away. And these other cornerbacks, they played suffocating defense and really made it really hard for the Falcons to throw the football. In the run game, oh my goodness, that is clogged up right pretty much at the line every time. If you are an offense and you're running the football, don't look at Linval Joseph and say we're going to run the ball his way. Just don't.
That has yet to work this season.
It's not a great strategy.
Early on, you got to give them credit. Early on in the game, they did have a little bit of problem containing the run game. And then that's kind of the story of this team. They settle down after about the first quarter, especially coming in after the halftime. They settle down and they slow down and they got the run game stopped. And it was just Vikings game from that point on.
You know how the Vikings have that stat for big plays, which are runs of 15 or more, or receptions of 21 or more? The Vikings' longest reception they allowed was 20, and the longest run they allowed was 13.
Damn, that's some darn good football.
Against a team known for explosive plays.
Yeah, they were red hot coming into this game. They kind of stumbled because they have a new offensive coordinator this year, and I think defensive coordinator as well. After last year, everybody was like, "Oh, Super Bowl hangover." The last 3 games, they kind of figured it out, and they look like that team from last year. But I mean, we're going to get into the game really here shortly because we got to give away donkeys too. But no touchdowns yesterday. That is insane. Matt Ryan had his probably his worst game they said in the last 30 starts.
Yeah.
Good God, man.
It's the Vikings defense.
Yeah, what a dominant performance.
How often does Matt Ryan throw the ball 29 times, only get 173 yards?
That's insane. This defense is the truth, man. I'm telling you. I had to pick just a player because I couldn't really find anybody who was too terrible yesterday. I went with Laquan Treadwell. Not really his fault, but one catch, he kind of bobbled it a little bit, and he had 1 target yesterday. I really want to see more out of him. I really want to see more out of him, but it's kind of hard when you have Adam Thielen and Diggs taking all the receptions away. But I want to see more from a first-round wide receiver. Damn it. Not his fault, though.
I want to see some better decision making on special teams. That's what I want to see. And that comes from deciding when to take a knee in the end zone and when it's clear to return a punt. And this game, we saw Marcus Sherrills make some bad decisions on when to bring it out. And there was a time when he got a punt return when there was nobody around him and he waved for a fair catch anyway. And so he is going to be my donkey for this week.
Ooh.
Tommy Gunn's not going to like you for that one.
Hey, even good players make bad decisions sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it works.
Well, I gave mine to Marshall Faulk for being that stupid prediction on the NFL Network that he made before the game, where he said that Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, that Julio Jones would have more receiving yardage than Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs combined. Come on, man.
How'd that work out for you, Marshall?
On paper, that seems like a fantastic bet. I mean, Julio Jones came into the game red hot, and if you were a betting man and you didn't know the defense he was going against, you'd bet Julio was going to have another big game.
Yeah, but it's his job to know. You should know.
But they don't make bold predictions without being bold.
No, that's true.
Make a bold prediction, but don't make a stupid prediction. Like,
I love it, sir.
But to be fair, Diggs and Thielen only combined for what, 79?
Yeah.
Offhand, I'm not sure. I don't have the stats pulled up, but yeah, it wasn't much. Atlanta's defense did a good job of playing the Vikings receivers really tight the whole game. It felt
like a playoff game yesterday.
This was not an easy win. This was a very tough. The Vikings had to stick with their game plan. They had to grind it out to come out with this victory, and they did a good job of sticking with it and coming back to what they do. And then that's playing defense, and that's getting the run game going for the Vikings.
And that time of possession battle again, and I think it was weird.
I was just about to mention that time of possession because there were two stats that just really jump out during this game, and it's the Vikings having the ball for over 34 minutes against the Falcons, which a lot of that was that one big drive that took nearly 6 minutes off the clock.
I mean, hey, Atlanta can't score if they don't have the football.
And the second. This is the big stat from this game that you're not going to hear about on NFL Network.
Can I take a guess on this one?
Go ahead.
The first down conversion.
Third down efficiency.
Okay, that's it.
Out of 10 attempts on third down, they converted once.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Not first down, because there was several where they would get a first down from a first down, but the 1 out of the 10 for third down conversions is crazy because they kept referencing that in the game. This is the NFL's best offensive team on third down versus the NFL's best defensive unit on third down, and we see who won that battle yesterday.
Yeah, that battle was not even close. The fact that Atlanta only converted 1 of their third down attempts, it's mind-blowing. I mean, I know I've been talking so much about how great Atlanta's offense is and how many explosive weapons they have and how they should be expected to put forth these big performances, and then to come out and do this.
Even Mike Zimmer was impressed by that one. He kind of let that slip in the post-game presser, where he said, "Oh, of course we always want to stop them." Wasn't expecting to stop them that well.
I was just going to mention that, man.
It was absolutely amazing. Michael Cambria makes another point in there that I was just about to make. No turnovers in the entire game. No interceptions, no lost fumbles. It was really a clean football game that was fought hard in the trenches. And it was really, even though it wasn't a high-scoring game, it was fun and intense to watch.
Absolutely.
We talked about that in the chat during the game about how I'm impressed by how well coached our offensive players are for ball security. Where there was a play where Stephon Diggs, he kind of caught it in the middle of the field. He's kind of running towards the sidelines, and you see him with both hands over top of the football. Yeah, where it's like he's not letting anyone punch that out. And there's been a lot of times Adrian was terrible at it, where he'd have that ball loose and out, and someone would come up from behind him and just punch it out. And so I really like the fact that the Vikings are working so hard on ball security. You can tell how well coached this team is.
Kyle, you want to know something ironic? You say that with a picture of Adrian Peterson behind you.
Holding a football.
As out like that.
Yeah, you can see that on the painting behind me right there, how he's holding the football.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
He was a legend, but God, that's one of the things I hated. I was hoping to see one of those cool turnovers like the last time we played Atlanta. I think it was the 11-5 season a couple seasons ago. Anthony Barr runs up with a freaking cast on his arm and punches the ball out. But I know what you're talking about with Stephon Diggs, because I had a couple of my friends text me about that. They're like, why is your guy running down the field with both of his arms on there? I was like,
fucking ball security.
Because we don't want to have a turnover.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The rushing stats are pretty even. Vikings won the passing battle by about 34 yards. But like we said, first downs were the big key here. And Minnesota kept chipping the ball away. And they ended up picking up 22 first downs compared to 15 for Atlanta. And that's what allowed them to just win that battle, have the time, grind their defense down, because the Vikings have this road grading offensive line. A lot of those guys that are on the offensive line are there because they are exceptional run blockers. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they've been able to just plow through people is great. And being able to pass protect enough for Case Keenum to deliver the ball where he needs to is just an added bonus. So statistically, it's a fairly even game. It's back and forth through a lot of the contest, like we kind of thought it was going to be. But, you know, it was that time of possession, the first downs, and that third down efficiency that just took the game to the different level for the Vikings. That's what the big difference was during this game.
Our defense is really doing an outstanding job of setting the tone for these football games. They're not letting them get out of hand. They're not putting them to where, oh, it's a shootout, and now we have to go point for point with the Falcons. No, we're not doing that.
If you told me the Vikings scored 14 points against the Falcons, I'd assume they lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. Yep.
But that defense, man, that defense. Let's jump into talking about some stats now. Case Keenum, 25 for 30 during the game for 227 and 2 touchdowns. Only sacked twice. A really good performance from Case, who showed off a lot of his mobility again during this game. Hit a lot of throws on the run. Hit multiple receivers during the game. Really just did a fantastic job spreading it all around. Laquan Treadwell got one. Ham got one. Jarius Wright got 3. Floyd got 2. Latavius Murray got 3. You know, the ball was just being thrown around like crazy. And the Vikings didn't have a wide receiver that just kind of exploded off the page. I mean, Adam Thielen only had 51, Rudolph 36, Diggs 32, McKinnon 28. Again, not stats that are going to jump off the page at you, but it was those 2 receiving touchdowns, one by Kyle Rudolph, which I don't know if that was a busted coverage or an excellent route, but either way, it was fantastic. And Jerick McKinnon did that fake block over into the end zone so well that there was really no chance of defending that.
I know the Thanksgiving thing was pretty good for touchdown celebrations, but I love Jerick McKinnon's Dirty Bird yesterday. That's what I really want to give my game ball to.
One guy that kind of deserved a game ball, but we didn't really give it to him, was Latavius Murray. Murray has been putting together a fantastic season kind of on the down low, especially the last few weeks. He's known for having that straightforward style, and I believe they talked about it during the broadcast, where his teammates love him because he can take some contact and then fall forward for a yard or 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he's still got that shiftiness, that mobility, the agility. You saw him jump over a player once. You know, you saw him spin and get his footing back. Latavius Murray's more than just this one-cut runner.
He's healthy, and he's got his mojo back finally. Early on, you know, it took him a bit to get his groove going, but I think he's got it, and he's a reliable piece for this Vikings on offense now, and that's super important too, because you need to have, in today's NFL, I really believe you got to have 2 backs that can complement one another, and I think Murray and McKinnon for the Vikings are complementing one another really well right now.
Unless they're generational backs, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, not every team can have Le'Veon Bell. It's just...
I don't know where I read it today. I don't know if it was in one of your articles or maybe on our stuff, because right before we do a podcast, usually the day of, I'm reading a ton of stuff to get ready for the show. But I think Latavius had, like 70-some yards yesterday, and I think 6 of them came from, what is it, said after contact?
Yeah, Pro Football Focus said that he picked up a lot of yards after contact. And that was one of the things that they really praised when they gave him his grade. I was impressed by that as well, because you don't normally see Latavius Murray breaking out a spin move. That's not his usual style, but he knew, you know, he was squeezing through a couple spots. So he showed some patience that was really awesome, especially on the long run. He let the holes develop. And when you've got a team as good at blocking the run as the Vikings are, if you give them that little bit of time, odds are you'll have some kind of gap.
Yeah, they made a Le'Veon Bell comparison yesterday with patience, which that's the utmost praise. Next to David Johnson, I think he's the best running back in football right now. So that's pretty cool when you can see traits from probably the best running back in the game right now showing that patience yesterday. So that was pretty cool to hear.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine if we had Dalvin Cook right now?
I mean, that's coming.
Oh God!
And that's what else I was thinking about yesterday too. Thinking about the players, I don't know if necessarily the chemistry would be the same if Bradford was still healthy and Cook was still around. I'm sure it would be as good as it is now, maybe better. But we're doing a damn good job, and we have a backup quarterback in, and our number one running back's down. That's pretty insane.
It's pretty good luxury for the Vikings that they were able to have Latavius Murray to step in for when Dalvin Cook went down.
I'm excited. Eric Grandal says we got the poor man's version of Kamara and Ingram.
That's true.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Eric Grandal says Murray's been a great signing. Michael Cambria says Murray made some nice cuts yesterday. And Latavius Murray, when he was signed, everybody was kind of like, oh, well, he'll do okay. And then, Dalvin Cook got drafted, and everybody's like, well, why do we still have him? This is why we still have him. This is the reason right here.
I hope we can go into next season with all three of them. I don't know if they'll be able to swing that with cap space and whatever else happens, but I would like to have all three of them next year. All
right, so let's talk about kick returns. Marcus Sherrill's had 251 yards, which, it sounds good, but when you get the ball at the 25 after a kickoff, you're just kind of like, okay. He had the one punt return for 10 yards, and he could have had that second. I'm still not sure why he took the fair catch on that, but I'm just glad that field position didn't come back to haunt Minnesota. Because anytime you're facing off against the Falcons, it's going to be a battle of inches. Then we got kicking, where Kai Forbath didn't attempt a field goal during the game, but made both of his extra points. One kind of scared me.
Yeah, you hear the doink off the upright, and you're like, not again. No, that one went through.
But they both went in, which that's great. And punting, Ryan Quigley had that amazing punt that just sidewinded right out at the 2, and I loved that one. He had 5 punts on the day for an average of 45, one in the 20, which is the one we're talking about, and the long for 51. He had himself a day.
Yeah, that bounce out at the 2 was incredible. And you don't notice things like that if you don't look for them with special teams like punting. But, man, I was one thing I was really excited about, like you mentioned. Kai didn't miss anything yesterday kicking, and Ryan Quigley he's quietly turned into a pretty good signing as well since we lost Jeff Locke. I'm still salty about that, by the way. I'm going to bitch about that the whole season. But
I liked Locke, too. I did. And honestly, I thought that Quigley lost the punter battle this preseason, but I'm glad that things worked out the way they did, and there's a reason I'm not a talent scout for the Vikings, right?
I think that's the hardest job to have. How do you know? Because look at Adam Thielen. Does anybody? If you guys didn't know, he was an undrafted receiver. I'd like to tell you about his backstory now, if we have 5 minutes.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, hey, real talk though. Talking about Adam Thielen and making the joke about all that. If you guys haven't seen, he did an interview about 5 minutes long with Randy Moss, and it's probably one of the coolest videos I've seen as a Vikings fan in a while. Seeing this kid see one of his idols that he grew up being from Minnesota, and now he's getting interviewed by one of the future Hall of Famers that played for us. It's pretty sweet. You guys check that out.
Yeah. We could talk about some Falcon stats, but I already ran down what Matt Ryan did, and it wasn't super impressive. Through the air, we talked about holding Julio Jones. Mohamed Sanu had the best game for them with 3 catches on 5 targets for 43 yards. Otherwise, it was a lot of dump off and short passes to try to pick up yards, and this Vikings team is too disciplined to let people run past them or break too many tackles. So Devontae Freeman was the guy that caused the most trouble during this game. 12 carries for 74 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. I was surprised not to see a bigger dose of him during this game. But Atlanta likes to keep their offense very balanced, and they do have so many weapons in the passing game that I'm kind of surprised that they didn't want to use Freeman more to open up that kind of thing. But Tevin Coleman, on the other hand, their secondary guy, 8 carries for 22 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. I like Tevin Coleman. I think he's a nice compliment to Freeman, but he just could not get going. Defensively, they had 2 guys that had 10 tackles or more. I do want to give a little bit of shout out to Keanu Neal because he is going to be very good for the Atlanta Falcons for a long time.
Yeah, he was a pretty disruptive force yesterday. It's not what I wanted to see, but he's just talented, man.
I do want to talk about the Falcons defense for a second because they had some beat-up players in their secondary. They had a couple of guys out, and yet their depth looked really good against Minnesota. They had some defenders out there that I have never really heard of doing a great job covering these Vikings receivers who've been shaking everybody this year. So major shout-out to them for having that kind of depth. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, Atlanta's defense did a really good job. They played a tight coverage the entire game.
So that's all I have for this game. You guys got anything else you want to talk about in regards to this football contest?
Nope, I'll just keep hitting up. We hit the cool stat of third downs. They were 1 for 10, which is incredible. Even Mike Zimmer, like Kyle mentioned, was surprised when he talked about that in the presser. I just can't believe that this is the team with the best offense in the league a year ago. And I know it's a completely different season, and we're almost through with this one, but they didn't score a touchdown yesterday, guys, in their own home.
Also, look, too, what the Vikings did against the team with the best offense in the NFL this year. They beat the Rams.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, this yesterday felt like a playoff game to me. It was crazy.
Now, like I said before, if you told me the Vikings scored 14 points, I'd have thought they lost. And if you'd have told me the Vikings didn't sack Matt Ryan once, I'd say they lost.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more than just sacks. And I know that as defensive ends and, edge rushers and everything, a lot of those stats that everybody eyes up are interceptions, sacks, the big plays. And there wasn't a ton of those during this game. When I was putting together my highlights and big play articles for the Viking Age, I'm like, there isn't a lot of big plays during this game. There isn't anything that just really made your jaw drop and went, oh, this was smash mouth football right here.
Yeah, it was weird. I think the feeling that I got from that game was these two teams knew that one another could at any moment make an explosive play or make that quick turnover. And they were on the edge. They were trying to play their best football. It's just, I think it came down to the time of possession battle, which we won again. No turnovers, which was awesome. And I just can't believe it, man. They didn't score a touchdown in their home, on their home turf.
It's insane.
That's so crazy. This is my favorite game of the year so far.
And they also didn't sell a single Chick-fil-A sandwich during the game.
That's right. They sure didn't. I never understand that. Being from the South and loving Chick-fil-A as much as I do, why the hell would you put one of those in there? That's when you're going to make the most money, right? I think during an NFL game, but whatever.
Oh,
Falcons.
But I love
Never had Chick-fil-A.
I think it's a proven stat. I think it's a scientific stat if we could do the research on it. You want Chick-fil-A the most on Sunday.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
You always want what you can't have, man. You always want what you can't have.
But I mentioned, because this was my favorite game personally of the year so far, until this Sunday, because I'm from Charlotte and I'm super pissed I'm going to miss this game because I could get tickets. I know I could get tickets. But we have another road game against a playoff contender because they're at the top of in the hunt, I believe, or if not, they're the 6th seed. I'm not sure. But the Panthers, we're traveling to Carolina this week, and I hope it's much of the same repeat performance last year where we sacked Cam Newton about 8 times. That's going to be a tough one.
And the Panthers they're another team that has just been kind of quietly putting together a really good season, and they're doing so in a really strange way. I mean, normally you'd see all the highlights. It'd be Cam Newton all over the place, but bringing back Captain Munnerlyn has kind of helped their defense in a big way.
Absolutely, and don't count the Panthers out, and I'll give that shout out right now. They're only 2 wins behind us. They fell yesterday to New Orleans in New Orleans. New Orleans is on a pretty good hot streak, winning most of their games recently. They fell to New Orleans yesterday early because of that crazy running back tandem that you mentioned, but The Panthers are 8-4, so don't count them out. They're very much in the playoff hunt. If they're not the 6th seed, they're the first team out, so they'll be right there in it. I have something for next week's show. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that we win this game. But if there's one game that I want us to win this year, minus obviously a Green Bay game, I want to see these guys go into my hometown and just tear it up, because they did it last year on that hot start. But this team's definitely capable of going in and beating Carolina. So it's going to be frustrating for the Panthers if we get that pass rush going. But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be on – I'm not sure if it's on Fox. I think it would be. But it's going to be at noon Central Time, so 1 Eastern. So it's going to be the early game, so you have to check that out. Yet again, another potential playoff game against two big contenders in the NFC. So,
yeah, they decided not to flex this one and instead went with the Ravens and Steelers, right?
Ugh.
But here's an interesting little fact for you. The Vikings
– But we all sounded thrilled over that one.
The Vikings are still top 5 in both total offense and defense this season. They have the number 5 spot at 370.4 yards per game. And defensively, they're number 2, allowing only 289.1 yards per game. Now, when you look at the top 5 in certain stats, Minnesota is number 2 against the run, but they're not in the top 5 against passing. 77.7 yards per game rushing. And right behind them at number 4 there, you got Carolina at 88.6. So for a while, the Panthers had the number 1 defense in the NFL. But they've been kind of slipping a little bit lately. And it'll be interesting to see these two teams with these excellent defenses going head-to-head on Sunday. I'm excited.
I'm looking up the playoff hunt right now, so excuse me for that.
Eric brought up an excellent point in the chat. Next week is Everson Griffin versus Matt Khalil.
It is.
Holy crap, that's going to be fun to watch unfold.
So I was right on that. Carolina currently sits as the last playoff team at 8-4. They got swept by the Saints and lost to the Eagles. So it says here they haven't proven that they can hang with the elites. It's going to be tough for them. But there's another playoff team, because as of yesterday, until we beat Atlanta, they were in the hunt. They were definitely up there. The NFC South has quietly turned into one of the most competitive divisions, minus the Succaneers this year because they're awful. But the other 3 teams, they might represent 3 out of the 4 teams in their division in the playoffs.
Sadly, the Buccaneers couldn't put away the Packers this week in a game that they should have won, but instead they got ran all over. And the Buccaneers now are facing the Lions next week. So for the division, the Buccaneers seem to be a bit of a challenge, but so far, I don't believe they've beaten any of them, right? But they haven't played Chicago, I don't believe.
Well, that'll be a fun game.
Maybe that one will get flexed to prime time.
I can only hope so. Maybe we can watch Indianapolis and the Browns too. Oh, they already played. Never mind. Sorry, guys. I have to jump in and say it. I've been pretty slacking. We don't have the social media question of the week. I'm kind of slacking there, and I apologize for it. We've been doing some cool stuff, though, if I can do a transition to promote. I didn't take part in that because, honestly, I didn't see it on the Facebook page. But I think this is the second week in a row we've done the Discord chat. And
yes, we did.
It's becoming I think it could become a weekly staple as long as we have games, or maybe we can do it at some point in the offseason, maybe talk about the draft or something like that. But you guys seem to enjoy it and jump in, and that was my question last week. And 4 out of 4, we got the thumbs up on that. So if you guys still want to roll with it, especially Adam and Kyle, I love that. I love getting to talk to you guys during the game. So
we got some more fresh faces in there this week too, which was nice.
I love it. Spread the word. Tell all your friends, because we're just going to keep this train rolling for the Pro People Podcast, and it's all because you guys put the word out there.
Once again, we only did the text chat during that game. I believe that maybe if we reach the playoffs or something, we'll do some voice chat during the game. That could be kind of fun, but for now, I think we're kind of sticking to the text, making sure that everything's all good there. But we do get some nice people joining in there, and you get to hear my fun rants about kids talking about computers, which, yeah, that's what happened in the Discord chat. So that's what you're missing, guys.
We talked a lot about Sherbert.
A lot of Sherbert.
lot of sherbet in the chat. We're still trying to figure it out. We had a bit of an issue with links that had expired on trying to get people into the Discord. So it's a learning curve. Just stick with us. If you want in, message us. We'll get you a link. We'll get you in and figure it out. But
yeah, I'll update the link and I'll put that up a couple more times. Like I set it to publish twice on the Facebook page, which I believe gets automatically shared to Twitter.
Yeah, yep.
So, I'll put the non-expiring link in there, and I'll get that up and running. I'll set that to publish twice again, once right before the game and once in the middle of the week. So hopefully we can join on in. I want to give an update on the Survival League because this was the first week that we moved to having teams select 2 survivors. That means an opportunity for 2 strikes. And so far this week, nobody has gotten a single strike even when picking 2 teams. Only one player is left that has picked a team on Monday night, and that's me. And the team that I picked to win is currently down 10 points, and their opponent has the ball.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you about that. The Bengals are up 10-0. They're hosting the Steelers, and it's 2nd and 1, and they're almost across the 50. So good luck. I have Antonio Brown on my fantasy team, so I'm hoping he does Antonio Brown things and the Steelers pull out a win. So I'll root for the Steelers for you, Adam.
If they lose, I'm gone. So, but we do have a pretty good idea of what kind of prizes we want to get for you guys. So I hope to have a real cool prize package. I've gotten a few things here lately that I think you guys are going to dig. So fingers crossed that whoever wins it really loves the package we put together.
It's going to be fun. And regardless if you don't like it, it's free stuff if you win.
Hey, if nothing, it was a fun way to interact. It's a nice way for us to say thank you to all you guys for listening and supporting us. And for all you guys that are supporting us out there, it's been absolutely amazing. We do appreciate every single one of you guys who take the time to listen to us, join us in the chats, or even just comment on stuff on Facebook or Twitter. It's fantastic, guys. Really appreciate it.
I think that's it, man. I don't have anything else for the notes or the show.
Well, we got people in the chat here talking about The Walking Dead, which I can't blame them because I got a pretty good spot in my heart for that show. And the mid-season finale is coming up, and they are promising a shocking moment that's going to knock you on your butt. And I've got a pretty good idea of what it is. And I'm not going to share it here because I know spoilers, not a good thing. But I will say that if you want all kinds of coverage and analysis and speculation about The Walking Dead, check me out over on Undead Walking. Same thing with the Minnesota Vikings. I've got a great team working on the Viking Age. Head on over there. You can bookmark it, download the apps because we got apps. And I know you guys got mobile devices. Everybody's got mobile devices these days. Whether it's a phone or an iPad, you got some.
That's what I'm clicking around on right now.
And that's also a great place where you can go on YouTube or iTunes and subscribe to our show. Pass it on to your friends. We greatly appreciate it. Remember to, after Monday, when it gets to be Tuesday, head on over. And if you are doing the Survival League, you like to pick your new teams. It's still going to be 2 teams. And I looked at the options for next week. And since they don't refresh, you've got some tough options, man. Next week's games look tough. I kind of hope I get eliminated just so I don't have to pick.
You got to stay in, sir. Somebody's got to take the 3-peater down.
It's looking rough, man. It's looking rough. But we'll be back next week to talk about the game against the Carolina Panthers. And we want to thank everyone for joining us here in the chat, listening to us on iTunes, Stitcher, PodOMatic, Google Podcasts, wherever you guys listen, because I'm sure that if you're listening to this, you know where to find us. That's kind of the way it works. Or you stumbled across us in a news feed, which would be awesome.
What? What is this crap?
Yeah. But if you have any suggestions, ideas, thoughts, comments, feel free to hit us up on Facebook. We're always around to chat Vikings football. And I just want to remind you guys to stay classy, Minnesota.